Hello, welcome to ExpertCast, our podcast dedicated to discussing the latest innovations in healthcare, supported by Agfa Radiology Solutions. I'm Gustavo Meirelles, radiologist, healthcare entrepreneur, and founder of the Healthcare Innovation Community. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming again a very special guest, Jeroen Spruyt, the Global President of Agfa Radiology Solutions. Welcome again to the ExpertCast, Jeroen.
Thanks, Gustavo. It's a pleasure to be back, and I look forward to the next questions that you will be firing on me. And I'm a bit stressed on you just informed me about 4 special questions at the end of the show.
No, so you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
I hope I don't drop out of my corporate role when I have to answer those ones.
I hope so too. But you don't be stressed. Yeah. It's like just a quick chat about 4 questions, not related to healthcare innovation, but hints for the life of those who are listening to us today. So I'm glad to continue our conversation in the first part of our episode. We have discussed 2 very important topics, AI in radiology and sustainability. Today, I would like to continue our conversation focusing on, first, your views about the main challenges in global radiology and also the future of the field. So first, about the challenges. Radiology departments around the world are facing various challenges, from resource constraints to lack of accessibility and of high-quality radiography services to rapidly adopting new technology. So how do you view these challenges worldwide, and how do you think they could be addressed?
It's not an easy question, and first of all, for me, it's more. Let's just zoom out, and for me, let's really zoom out at what we see is happening across the world and how we need to play. From Agfa Radiology side, how we need to play to be successful. First of all, what we see the past years and also going forward, it has never been more important to be local. Even if you're a global company, you have to be local. And being local to understand the healthcare system, to understand the nuances, to understand also the stage where the healthcare system is in, the evolutions that it's undergoing. And that's something that we try to do by having very dedicated boots on the ground in the various continents across the world with our sales and service, but also our product teams, and also with the Radiology Advisory Board to really understand what is going on in the various parts of the world and how do we need to prepare ourselves to be capable of playing into the nuances that we see there. And it's often very different between economies which are in a very mature stage or economies where we really see that access to healthcare is just advancing. So we see places where the level of healthcare is advancing, but we also see places where just more people are getting access to healthcare. And that's for us really important to understand and to see, okay, how do we need to play on that level? Yeah. Then for me, the second level where we really see a challenge is also the rising demand, the rising demand on the healthcare system. And that's typically in the areas where you see more people getting access to healthcare. You see that we open up the healthcare system for a broader population, but at the same time, we really struggle with managing also the expectations related to having the personnel to give the care that is needed, also having the funding to be able to give the budgets that are needed. And that is exactly also a place where we see for the activity that we do, X-ray, and direct radiography, where we see really with the good cost-to-value ratio of the solutions we have, and the automation, and AI to give more clinical value to it, that we really can play a role. And that we can really also advance and speed up the possibility of economies giving also access to healthcare. At the same time, in economies that are growing the healthcare level, we see other focuses which we also play on. And then the third item that we see is really also that resource gap, where you really see that we lack in a lot of healthcare system just the personnel to be there to operate X-ray rooms, but also to interpret images. And there, I think we're in the same kind of situation as the automotive industry has been. How do we go from an assist to an advice to a direction phase when we think about using an X-ray room or using a mobile X-ray and also interpreting images? And that's really our solution. Like if we really don't have the personnel, or if we see that it's really very difficult to train the necessary qualitative personnel, how can we then, from a technology point of view, reduce the training level which is needed to get to the same quality level from a healthcare point of view? And that means more automation, more advances into the solutions that we bring. And then a last part is also the accessibility of healthcare, and the accessibility on the level of do we group all healthcare activities into big hospitals, or do we allow a very decentralized access to healthcare? And also on that level, and you refer to it with the 5G and then interpretation, I think that was in the previous episode. Also there we see that with X-ray and with direct radiography, we have the potential of moving out of the hospitals, moving really in the more, not remote, but more like satellite locations. And then really connecting it to the more central hospital organizations where we can build a system that allows for a more local and geographical spread out access to these first diagnostic that help you into the right care trajectory. So that's a bit our view. Yeah.
Very good. I like it. And, I think healthcare is changing a lot. For example, decentralizing healthcare is probably a way to go in many different countries, and also providing more access. Again, as we were discussing in the last episode, is a big issue in countries like Brazil, for example. So I would like to go to another question, which I usually ask to my guests here, related to the future of healthcare. So I usually cite Bill Gates, and it's said that Bill Gates quoted that. I'm not sure if it's really from Bill Gates, but I couldn't find the real author. And Bill Gates was saying that we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we'll do in 10 years. So I'd like to hear your opinions about the future of radiology. Looking forward, where do you see the field of radiology heading in the next 5 to 10 years? And what are some of the potential technological breakthroughs that could reshape healthcare industry?
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm really the right person to ask that question to, because in all honesty, that's exactly the question that we put on the table of the Agfa Radiology Solutions Advisory Board. Yeah. So we mostly have that discussion in the opposite direction. What I do see is that I think the area where specifically and the time frame also where we're in is incredibly exciting. There are advances in a lot of areas. AI is just one of them, but we also see advances in new ways of building things. So in all fairness, in my field, whether the final evolution will now come from a radical breakthrough of AI or a fundamental change of the form factor of X-ray, we have an idea. I don't know whether I want to put it on the table here in the podcast. That gives a bit too much details of what happens behind the scenes at Agfa Radiology Solutions. But what I do know is that looking 5 to 10 years up front, and if we then see what technology allows to do with X-ray, I do see that also where the stage of the world and the economy is in, needing more access to healthcare, needing more solutions for not enough trained personnel, I'm 100% sure that the role of X-ray will only grow. That is just the fundamental elements. It's a, between brackets, simple solution. It has a good cost-to-value ratio. We still see so many potential to add clinical insights, but also automation to how the solution works. And the position also in the care trajectories. And I'm repeating myself a bit too much, I have the impression. But also the position, what it has in the care trajectories just makes it a fundamentally interesting area to be in. And it's really a convergence of technology that we are now in. We've seen that in other industries. I think on the healthcare level, we're there a bit behind some of the evolutions we've seen. But the moment that technologies come together in a certain industry, you really see breakthrough innovation. And I think we are there. Yeah, and I fundamentally believe that we are in a very interesting area of innovation and also a very interesting place when it comes to X-ray. And that's also what you feel it in the DNA of the people that work in my organization. I know that you interact with my Brazilian team quite often, and you just see that that's the drive that they also see. They feel that. We also start to notice that. So I think that's really the way forward. And we'll see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years, but we're quite enthusiastic.
That's great. And, talking about your team, how is Agfa Radiology Solutions preparing for the future? And what innovations can we expect to see from Agfa's team in the coming years?
So how we're preparing for it is the same way as I would invite all other companies, but also all healthcare professionals. And also what you're preaching is like, it can be overwhelming. The technology innovations that are there, and it can be sometimes a shock because you put into question significant investments you have done in the past, and you need to redefine how you will deal with them, seeing the new innovations. So what we do is we just try to be very open for it. Yeah, and open, but at the same time define in which areas we are looking for these innovations. And these are a bit the same areas as what we addressed in the first part of the podcast. We really look at, okay, image quality remains one of our focus points within Agfa Radiology Solutions. We have advanced there massively in the past 30 years. And we continue to advance. We continue to add new features, and we just try to. We are in competition with ourselves. We just try to be better as the previous solution we brought to the market, and keeping that image quality focus really there. The second thing is we also try to see, okay, if we prepare for the future, we should really understand how software can simplify the use of the solutions we put into the market, and that they really become solutions. They really become solutions to addressing a certain problem or addressing or helping the treatment of a patient. And that's about automation, that's about changing form factor, that's about really rethinking and fundamentally readdressing what we can do. And then the third one, we also address that, is also really having an open and a nuanced debate with healthcare professionals about the additional clinical value that AI can bring, checking how open they are to it, going into the various phases, not being blunt and say, oh, we can do everything a radiologist can do. That's not true, but we want to help. And we want to progress, and we want to create that opening to think about that. And also to monitor and to verify whether the productivity that is claimed and the value that is claimed is really there in a very early stage. And if we see it's not there, then we will just take a step back. Yeah, and we defined also there, in all fairness, you also have to know your place in that ecosystem. Yeah, so we know that we are building the solutions. We have access to clients and also patients. We see a lot of activity in the startup landscape, which are looking for places where they can deploy their solutions. So we also want to be very open and inviting to startups. So we make sure that the platform that we integrate into our solutions is an open platform, that it also allows what I would call localized AI. So we see that AI solution from one vendor works perfectly in certain part of the world, but in the other part of the world, there's a preference for somebody else. And that should also be possible. It's not easy to do so, but we try to be ready for that. And I think that's really how we try to not be overwhelmed and take an open perspective into it. And up until now, it has been a rather successful trajectory. Let's see where it brings us.
Well, this has been a very insightful conversation, Jeroen. And before we wrap up, is there any specific advice you'd like to send to healthcare leaders and professionals?
when it comes to innovation, it's the one that we addressed in the last question. Is just how can we be open? How can we be open for the possibilities that innovation and also AI brings to us? And how do we make sure that we don't try to solve the problems that we have today the same way as we've been doing it for the past 10 years? Because in some way, given that they're not solved yet, we might need other solutions for it. And if we have that openness to also think about innovation and other ways of solving the existing problems, I think we could make a huge advantage. And we can make also huge progress in global healthcare.
Well, let's close with a recently implemented ExpertCast feature. We call it the Quick Chat.
Okay.
So quick and direct questions to end our conversation. And the first one is about a cultural recommendation. Could be a book, a film, a TV show.
Okay, so I shared it with you on LinkedIn, and I was really surprised that you were also reading the book. And it's
Yes.
it's a book, Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity. It's really about how do you prolong the qualitative part of your life. So how can you live in a high quality? Not how do you extend your life, but how can you make sure you live qualitatively? I'm really intrigued about that's also for me a different way of looking at healthcare. It's sometimes also contested, and I can understand it, but it's interesting. Yeah.
And how do you care for your own health? Are you taking some of the advice of the book?
Yeah, definitely. So, but already before I was reading the book, for me, one of the things that I do, I'm quite addicted to cold water, swimming, and I call it an addiction, but it's really something that allows me to reset myself both mentally but also physically. I'm not sure whether the health benefits are really there, but it does such a good thing to me that I keep doing it for 2 to 3 times a week. And the fact that you go into that environment, water between 5 to 0 degrees, we swim, so it's not ice baths, it's really swimming. And the fact that you have to convince yourself to go in there, it really makes you being in the present. So you really have to be there, and you really have to accept that it is aggressive. It feels aggressive, but if you get out of the water, you're just resetted. You're ready again, and that's one of the things that I really do to also strengthen my health.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes. And who would you like to interview in a podcast?
That was a question that one of my people gave away, because they said you might have to think a bit longer about it. And I thought about, in all honesty, I think I would be very interested to interview myself when I'm 80 years old, 80.
That's a nice
to
answer.
understand which lessons I've learned and how I could be a better person today. Looking back at my life, I don't know which answer that person would give. I hope they're okay, but that was something that I would look for.
Maybe with AI in the future. We don't know.
You never know. You never know.
And last but not least, what's your favorite innovation?
Yeah, that's a very simple one. Critical scan from Agfa.
Oh.
Radiology solutions. So just critical scan from Agfa Radiology solutions. No, and it's not a joke. In all fairness, it's not a joke, because we could think about way more advanced innovations. But the reason why I choose it is because that is really one where we see really that the productivity gain is there, that the clinical value is there, and that we have been able to integrate it into an existing workflow. So we don't expect people to adapt to it. And that's what I like about innovation when it becomes concrete. And when it really starts to deliver value. So that's one. And I was allowed to make a commercial once in this podcast. So.
Well, thank you again, Jeroen, for being here. It was really a pleasure to have you as a guest here at ExpertCast, and I hope you liked it.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure for me. Very special to be here for this podcast, and it's always a pleasure to discuss these topics, and I really liked it. So. I hope also the listeners will be positive about it.
For sure. And I would like to say thank you to our listeners for tuning into this episode of ExpertCast. which has the support of Agfa Radiology Solutions and the production of SoPods. Don't forget to follow us and rate us 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform, as well as share the episodes on your social media and with your contacts. By doing this, you help us to disseminate quality information and increase interest in healthcare innovation. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.